What's poppin' YouTube? Is your boy Loho Plays. We are back for another week of the PBO week 4. PBO, the Pokemon Battle Organization, a Pokemon Draft League style format on Pokemon Showdown. Of course, we are going to go through the games for the Kalos Division. I will of course have the Kalos teams that have YouTube channels in the description below, as well as the Unova teams in this in the description below. The guys that have YouTube channels on the Unova side, in case you're interested. Of course, I am the co-owner, as well as I am the co-owner with Sonoran Flying. Make sure you check out his YouTube channel. But without further ado, let's go ahead and just like hop right into it. Week 4, very intense week. About halfway through the season actually, because there's 7 weeks and then there's playoffs. So this is definitely a big moment that we have reached the middle of the season actually. So pretty important, as well as make sure that you like, comment, subscribe for more PBO content in the future if you guys do enjoy this type of review content. Also, one more thing, any criticism made during the match are strictly meant to be positive criticisms and are not meant to be personal, as I've said like a trillion times before in the other videos. But of course, let's get into it. First game is Marble Falls Miniors with the team, or the team roster in the bottom right, while the Santa Cruz Swadloons are have the team roster in the top right. Santa Cruz Swadloons deciding to bring Goldingo, Tauros Paldea Aqua. I think that is a new roster shown for Santa Cruz Swadloons. They do have Paldea, Tauros, Aqua. They made a couple changes before the start of this week, but I do think Paldea, Tauros, Aqua is actually kind of heat because it has really good abilities. Intimidate, Pikachus is a little bit niche. But it can also be bulky. It's pretty fast as well and has good bulk up options. But the Santa Cruz Swadloons decided to bring Goldingo, Tauros, Paldea, Aqua, Florges, White, Meowscarada, Fletchinder, and Tinglu, while Marble Falls Minior decided to bring Klefki, Tornadus, Cyclizar, Lycanroc Midnight, Glacier, and Slowking Galar. So let's go ahead and get into this first battle. Lycanroc as the lead on Meowscarada as the lead. Meowscarada switching out to predict a Focus Sash or Scarf, which actually worked out because Lycanroc actually showing Endeavor here, which would have brought Meowscarada down to 1, and definitely would have brought one of Santa Cruz's biggest threats, being Meowscarada, down to 1 HP, which would have been really bad for them because they do want that at high health because it's their main damage dealer on their squad. We do see a double into Tinglu and then a switch. Wait, sorry, did we miss that? We catch the I'm like stuttering so hard right now. Tauros Paldea Aqua coming in for the Intimidate in case it was going for close combat and it was Scarf. Does decide to switch out into the Tornadus T, while Paldea Aqua Tauros decides to go into Tinglu. That's such a long name to say. Tornadus T going for a taunt to prevent the Stealth Rock's huge play on the Tornadus part, and then we see a switch into Florges, while Tornadus gets switch initiative with U-turn back into Lycanroc Midnight. Florges going for a Protect, scouting to see what Lycanroc wants to do, but Lycanroc setting up Stealth Rock, pretty effective turn for the Lycanroc. Now we see a switch into Slowking Galar as Florges decides to go for a Wish into a Baton Pass into Goldingo. I almost said Goldingo goes. Slowking setting up a Toxic Spike, really annoying for most of Santa Cruz's team. They do get off a Nasty Paw on Goldingo, while Slowking decides to Shelly Reception out into Lycanroc Midnight, which is pretty interesting. We do see the Shadow Ball doesn't kill them, but also the Fire Punch isn't doing that much damage, and we also see Recover on Goldingo, so it is able to recover off most of that Fire Punch damage. But we do see 49%, so maybe it's looking somewhat like a roll, but you are ultimately gaining HP out of this. Then we finally see the Shadow Ball on Lycanroc, taking it out, and now we see Cyclizar coming in, going for a knockoff. Would have killed the Goldingo if it would have stayed in, but also knocking off the Florges is very huge to get rid of its leftovers, as well as making the poison damage do even more. And then we see Iron Head from Cyclizar, huge damage. Cyclizar actually has a lot of good coverage. Fletchinder coming in, wanting to defog away the Stealth Rocks, is also not heavy duty boots, which means it's Eviolite, but even with Eviolite, Tornadus, I think this thing is offensive, is still able to kill it because it is a Fletchinder and it's most likely defensive. We see Meowscarada come in, going for a Thunder Punch, almost kills. If it was Life Orb, it would have killed there. And then we see a U-turn on Tornadus T to go into Cyclizar, and then we see Meow actually going for a U-turn on the Cyclizar the following turn, and then a U-turn by this, the U-turn into the U-turn into the U-turn. Scizors going for U-turn to bring out Torn, so Torn can go for a Heat Wave onto Goldingo. Next, we see Meowscarada come right back out to threaten it with a Thunder Punch, but we actually see Knockoff come out, which is a great prediction to kill the Scizor in one hit. Tera Dark as well. Now we see Ting Lu come out on the U-turn as well. Very good prediction on the Marble Falls to get some switch initiative. We actually see Slowking Galar come out on the Ting Lu, which is very interesting. Seeing another round of Toxic Spikes going up, considering that there are no more hazards, and then Ting Lu also setting up Stealth Rocks for their side as well. Slowking going for a Chilly Reception, does show Glacier, taking very little damage with the EQ, with the snow up especially, and then also it has the heavy duty boots to prevent the rock damage, and we do see a flinch on the Icicle Crash on the Ting Lu, which is very, very unfortunate. We do see Paldea Tauros Aqua come in for the Intimidate to drop the stats a little bit. We are going to see a switch here the following turn into Tornadus T, but we are going to see Tauros go for a Bulk Up. I would say that this is a pretty powerful play, but I know for a fact that this Tornadus does seem to be offensive, so it is going to outspeed and go for a Bleak Wind Storm. Does decent chip on Ting Lu, especially with all that poison damage that they were effectively able to get off. They could have gone for the kill there, but I guess they would decide to U-turn onto the Glacier and honestly taking pretty decent damage from the body press. Here now, the Tauros Paldea Aqua can come back and go for a Raging Bull on the Tornadus, doing crazy amounts of damage. 54% is heavy damage. We do unfortunately see a missed Bleak Wind Storm here, which means that Torn will go down, bringing it to a very close match. The Toxic Poison is reducing Tauros's HP. We do see Slowking come out and an EQ doing 67%. It's really insane. And then look at this late game Trick Room for the Slowking. So it can actually kill with a crit Flamethrower. I wonder if that mattered. Meowscarada coming in. Obviously in Trick Room, it's not going to be taking that much from Flamethrower, so it does get the kill. And then we are going to see Klefki come out last, and especially with Trick Room up, it is going to outspeed and kill it with Draining Kiss. So a clean 2-0 for Marble Falls against the Santa Cruz Swadloons. Very good match. I am now going to proceed into the review of the match, so if you are not interested in this, make sure that you check for timestamps to go on to the next battle. I do have some notes, as well as I kind of picked up on some stuff that I didn't realize the first time. So turn 1, I think all these plays made by Santa Cruz is actually extremely smart, because you're very worried about Lycanroc Midnight being potentially Scarf, and hitting a CC on your Meowscarada definitely sucks, just taking like high amounts of damage. As well as it ended up working out where you're also checking for Focus Sash. So if this was Focus Sash, if you just went for a straight up move there, it would have been pretty scary. I was thinking you could potentially U-turn, but I do understand that if you're worried that Lycanroc Midnight might be Scarf. I would assume 289. Yeah, 289 touch 1.5 definitely outspeeds Meow. So I definitely understand why you might be scared in that scenario, and I definitely think it was a good bet to make, because you do see the Endeavor coming out, meaning that your Scout actually was worth it. Then we see a double out into Ting Lu. Not a bad double at all. I wonder what they were trying to catch here. I mean, they intimidated the Lycanroc. Who would have come out? Maybe Slowking? Ah, I see. They were trying to catch the Slowking. Good double here. I mean, ultimately, it could be good for you because you could set up the Stealth Rocks, but unfortunately, you do get taunted, which does force you out the following turn. I would say for another potential play for you, Ting Lu just like never dies there, and although like being taunted definitely sucks, if you had Runation, I don't think you had Runation based off the way that you were playing this game, but if you had Runation is not bad there, because even if the U-turn out, potentially you could catch something. Even if they Bleak Wind Storm, you're taking about like, what was it before, you were taking about like 27%, but you do have leftovers, so you should be okay to like at least take one. And then maybe the following turn, but also Tornadus has Regenerator, so I do understand that it seems a little bit pointless. So this is just like another idea instead of hard switching, because sometimes this hard switch definitely benefits your opponent because they are getting the switch initiative here. Turn 5, especially since Santa Cruz for their team definitely does not have a strong spinner. Obviously Fletchinger is the one holding Defog. Here, especially if Lycanroc is out, Lycanroc is the only Stealth Rocker setup for their team. For Florges, I think even with the Stone Edge, I think you're the Calm Mind variant. I don't know if you're modest, like 252 special attack, or modest, or if you are defensive, but more than likely your opponent is going to go for Stealth Rocks here, because it is their only Stealth Rock Mon, and it's definitely more important for them to get up rocks on your team, considering that Fletchinder is the only one to get rid of it. So I definitely, instead of protecting here, would have probably gone for a Moonblast. I cannot believe I just clicked reset. I hate myself. Instead of going for protect here, go for a Moonblast, because the Stealth Rock is like not 100% obvious, but it definitely makes sense that if Lycanroc is here, it definitely has Stealth Rock. We do see a good switch. A Wish Baton Pass, more than likely, is not a bad play because you are preparing your switch the following turn. Potentially another Moonblast. I don't know if this floor just has... Actually, it would never be Psychic because it has Protect, Wish, Baton Pass, so I'm kind of stupid. But we do see Goldingo coming out. I think potentially another good switch in here could be Fletchinder as well, because if you're afraid of Sludge Bomb, I assume you do not die from 50% because this is a Slowking. I would calc that, but potentially you could go Fletchinder, catch the Wish, and then you can safely defog. Could be another option, but again, I would calc to make sure that you don't die from like Slowking, Sludge Bomb. Yeah, Nestplot is totally fine. Chilly Reception, all this is okay. I honestly like, between both players, this game was played extremely well. Not too many mistakes. I will say during like this kind of exchange for Goldingo, you can recover more turns basically, because it looks like these Fire Punches are a roll. Of course, there's like, I think, what is it, like 10% chance to burn with Fire Punch, but realistically that's not much. As well as potentially, if you are spamming Recover here, if you wanted HP back, because the thing is like, if you just spam Shadow Ball, eventually you are going to be left with this little amount of HP, right? So if you were worried about that, instead of doing that, you could double out into Tauros Paldea. You can also Intimidate it to reduce the damage output on Fire Punch. You do get Poison, which definitely sucks, so maybe that's one of the reasons why you were deciding not to do it. But ultimately, I do understand why you decide not to go for that. But also, you could have recovered stalled a little bit more to try to gain back a little bit more HP, but of course there are some Fire Punch hacks in there. Again, for Cyclozar, taking the knockoff, probably you didn't know that this had Iron Head, but for Santa Cruz, definitely a good scout is to go Paldea Tauros to scout, see if it has Iron Head, because I think Cyclozar, it's pretty somewhat common to have Iron Head because it has good coverage for fairy types. Fletchinder coming here without boots is totally fine. The thing is that with Fletchinder, it's hard not to run Eviolite, but then it's also hard not to run heavy duty boots, and this is just like one example of how it can be definitely difficult, especially without having like Wish Baton Pass, Florges to give it more health. I do think getting off the defog was really important there, but now that your defogger is gone, it's definitely going to be a struggle. Because they can start setting up hazards with Toxic Spikes on Galarian Slowking, which do end up mattering. Yeah, all this is fine. U-turn, Goldingo is the sack. Out comes Torn again. I think all this is fine. Could potentially go... I don't like Tinglu there. A little bit passive. Let's see, what was the next comment that I made? All this is fine. Ooh, I think turn 23, instead of EQing here, I thought, definitely thought that Ruination, if you have it for Santa Cruz, is a bit better. But it's totally fine. As well as here, this Icicle Crash is definitely a fine play. This flinch is, definitely sucks because you would have gotten a body press off, which does like at least 42%. I do like the switch into Paldea Tauros to get the Intimidate drop. As well as here, I get why you wanted to go for a bulk up so that you can make sure that you can 1v1 this. But also, I would say it's more likely that your opponent is going to switch because they're already intimidated. So instead of going for this bulk up on turn 25, I definitely think it would have been a little bit better to either go for, I think at least Raging Bull, because if you Raging Bull here, you 2 a KO Torn, you at least get off like enough damage on it where like it's gonna want a regenerator, probably U-turn out. There's probably a 50-50 where maybe you stay in, or probably you switch into Tinglu just to sack it. But then it's gonna U-turn again. I'm not exactly sure. But I think the Raging Bull here is definitely nicer because you bulked up here, but effectively you have to switch out because Tornadus, you know, can kill you. So the Raging Bull there would have been nice to at least get off the damage. Just like very minor mistake. U-turn here again, I don't really understand. For Marble Falls, there's really no reason to U-turn. I guess you're worried about Bleak Windstorm missing because it is 80% accurate. But yeah, there's basically no reason not to Bleak Windstorm there because like either of these things come out, maybe you just like sack something or you just sack Torn. Ends up being fine. Tauros comes out again. Here we see this is why the importance of Raging Bull damage. 54% is very, very strong, especially Regenerate. You're bringing it back to like 54%, then you could have sacked Tinglu. Even the U-turn, you know, Torn couldn't have taken a future Raging Bull, which is pretty important. I think all this is fine. Yeah, EQ. Setting up the Trick Room is actually really nasty for Marble Falls because it effectively weakened Meowscarada a lot. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall, very good game. There's not really too many mistakes, I would say, in terms of like playstyle. I will say Santa Cruz was a bit underprepared for Lycanroc Midnight because it is the only Stealth Rocker, excuse me, on Marble Falls' team, which is why they decided to run Eviolite instead of Heavy Duty Boots on Fletchender. But also, you know, when you do see Lycanroc Midnight, that definitely means that they're bringing Stealth Rocks. As well as Meowscarada actually seemed to be a lot larger threat than expected. Potentially, if that thing, I don't know, I'm not going to say like specifically which turns, but I will say if Meowscarada could come out more frequently, especially if you have Tera knockoff on stuff, like if you can Tera knock, if you can find a switch in with like Galarian Slowbro out and you make like an offensive double into Meowscarada, or potentially you wish Baton passed into Meowscarada with Florges early on and got like a Tera knockoff on the Slowking or whatever wanted to switch in, would have been doing heavy damage. So potentially thinking about if Meowscarada could be a little bit more offensive that game. But overall, GG's to both these players, and without further ado, we'll move on to the next match. Alright, and the next match we have is the Kingston Kleavors, which is a new team coming in for this week, I do believe. I kind of forget what team they're replaced. Maybe Tampa Bay Tentacruels, probably. No disrespect, but against the Las Vegas Corviknights. Now we can see that the Kingston Kleavors have the team roster in the top right. They did make some changes, so that's a little bit like the current team that they're using is a little bit outdated, so they don't have Hoopa anymore. But that is going to be their future team, as well as the Las Vegas roster in the bottom right. And the Kingston Kleavors deciding to bring Toxapex, Gallade, Kleavor, Hawlucha, Hoopa, and Thwackey, while Las Vegas Corviknights deciding to bring Bronzong, Quaquavel, Lokix, Iron Valiant, Typhlosion Hisui, and Vigoroth. Now, let's get into the battle. Leading off, we have Lokix against Kleavor, and we do see a switch into Quaquavel as Kleavor does decide to go for Stone Axe and set up Stealth Rocks, and then we see a huge wave crash coming off the Quaquavel as Kleavor decides to switch out into the Hoopa. Hoopa taking over half damage from that is really powerful. We do see a switch into Vigoroth as Hoopa doubles back out into Toxapex. Then we see another double from the Vigoroth back out into Bronzong. Now we can see a switch out of Toxapex as Bronzong sets up the Stealth Rock, very huge, as Kleavor doing a huge 53% with X-Scissors, huge damage, but we do see that with leftovers it will be able to live another. Vigoroth switching in for another X-Scissor is taking 42% from that, meaning it will die to the next one. Kleavor switching out into Toxapex, however, as Vigoroth goes for a Brick Break, takes Rocky Helmet Chip, and then does faint. And then Quaquavel we see does come out. Huge baneful bunker coming out from Toxapex, preventing the rapid spin and getting a poison on Quaquavel, as well as Hoopa coming in on the following turn to catch the rapid spin to prevent the block is huge. But Hoopa is taking damage from its own Sticky Barb, probably some trick shenanigans. Yes, it is, as we saw before, but Quaquavel does have Protect, preventing that, meaning Hoopa dies to its own Sticky Barb. Kleavor coming in takes a 25% chip from Stealth Rocks. Bronzong is the switch in to take the Stoneaxe. Bronzong able to live another one as well. Curious to see what it goes for. Goes for a Psychic, dealing good damage to Kleavor as well. Bronzong still is alive while Thwackey decides to come out, more than likely going for a knockoff here, and it does as it takes out Bronzong. Now we can see Quaquavel coming out, most likely wanting to get off the rapid spin. Thwackey going for a knockoff, able to live the Quaquavel hit. Wait, does this mean that it's Scarf? Wait, hold up. Maybe not. Wait, maybe not, right? Because this could be defensive. Sorry, that just like made me brain fart for a second. I was like, wait, he outsped the Quaquavel, but potentially. Pause, hold up. You see the knockoff, we see Quaquavel go for rapid spin. The following turn, Typhlosion Hisui is gonna come out, also threatening out the Thwackey, but like again, this definitely means that it's Scarf, right? No, but Typhlosion is faster. Okay, so it's not Scarf. It looks like it might be banded. Interesting. Typhlosion goes for an extra sensory, most likely trying to predict the Toxapex to come out. If you're me, oof. Flamethrower does end up taking out the Thwackey. Hawlucha coming out, also setting up the Grassy Seed, meaning with its Unburden boost, it outspeeds the rest of the Las Vegas Corviknights team. So Typhlosion does go down to an Acrobatics. Low Kick's coming out for Tera Bug, first impression, but Hawlucha has Protect to prevent the first impression. It's actually huge because then falling, it can go for another Acrobatics. Then we see Iron Valiant. What booster is it? It's special attack, meaning it had no chance of outspeeding it. Even if it was special like speed, there's more than likely had no chance. And that is a clean Hawlucha sleep by Chuck Norris and the Kingston Kleavors, clean 3-0. Again, we are about to go into the review of the battle. Feel free to skip to the next battle if you're not interested in this. There will be timestamps as well. So let's go through this battle without me clicking reset more than once. That would be huge for us. All right, so turn one, very good scout on the Las Vegas Corviknights to make sure to scout whether this is Choice Scarf, because Kleavor being Choice Scarf is very natural, as well as like it's definitely in a speed tier where it could be Scarf. So this is a very good switch to make in case it is Scarf with Stoneaxe, which I'm pretty sure, like almost certain it was. So Stealth Rock do end up being set up here. I also think potentially U-turn could have been powerful there, but also maybe you're predicting that your opponent does not want to stay in. But U-turn is like, you know, U-turn kind of reveals that you're Scarf. Maybe you want to get the Stoneaxe off to get like an initial kill. Quaquavel being a very good switch in here. The following turn, I will say that the for Kingston Kleavors here, trying to go here for the rapid spin to prevent the block is pretty cool actually. I think it's not a bad play, but of course the main problem is if they do end up going for Wave Crash, you're taking huge amounts of damage, as well as you're also taking Sticky Barb damage. So overall you took a lot of damage here. It could have been like a hard prediction to make, because like if they rapid spin, like it's good for you, but you also get outsped by Quaquavel, and if it does have U-turn, it can just U-turn the following turn as long as it is speedy. I think a more safer play would probably be to go Toxapex, and if it Wave Crash the first turn, then the following turn on the rapid spin you could Baneful Bunker and get off the poison. Because for you, realistically, like you definitely want the rocks are extremely useful for taking out Typhlosion Hisui, low kicks, just like overall weakening things. But the thing is like you don't, like Quaquavel has to keep coming into rapid spin to try to like prevent it off the rip. Like, you know, turn one you just set up rocks. Kleavor can definitely comfortably come out again and go for Stoneaxe again and like immediately get rocks back up. So I wouldn't stress too much about like keeping Stealth Rock up immediately, because again, if this Quaquavel is max speed, it can U-turn on your Hoopa the following turn and just switch out into something, and it'll still have their spinner alive. So it's not like you're taking out the spinner, but it is a cool idea. As well as I was gonna say, Sticky Barb Hoopa is also a pretty cool idea, but it is scary in those situations because, like you were trying to do, if you are trying to switch in on a rapid spin, you're immediately taking Sticky Barb damage just because you switched in at the end of the turn. You have to take the damage. So Hoopa, like this like Sticky Barb situation of like tricking is kind of like only like a turn 1 thing. I realistically think that you'd probably prefer like a better item. I don't even know if like Scarf would be cool because then you do outspeed the Quaquavel, but potentially maybe even like Focus Sash because then you can the following turn. I don't know though. I just think that there might be a lot better items than Sticky Barb because like specifically in this match, like your Hoopa dies because it has Sticky Barb. I think it ends up taking like at least 24-25% throughout the whole match because of Sticky Barb, which is definitely not useful. Not useful for sure. X's are coming out on Vigoroth. So Vigoroth being a Sacyr is totally okay. It doesn't seem to have like a great matchup to prevent like a lot of these attackers anyway, so Vigoroth is like just okay at best. Here I am confused as to why the Kleavors decide to switch out into their Toxapex, because Kleavor can freely just take take this out for free on the X-Scissor, but I get like this probably is better positioning perhaps. Because let's see, if you have Kleavor out and it has like X-Scissor, I mean, to be honest, you're still doing neutral damage to everything except for Quaquavel. Which again, like if it was gonna rapid spin, you could just go out into Toxapex. So like, I mean, ultimately it didn't end up mattering because Vigoroth went for Brick Break, but another option there was just to, take the kill that you had. Really love this Baneful Bunker idea for the rapid spin. It's just actually really, really powerful killing Quaquavel. Wait, I said I missed something here. For Bronzong. Here, if you have Gyro Ball, I assume that you were predicting to switch out into Toxapex. But, which, that is kind of like sketch for Kleavor to maybe stay in if Bronzong did have Gyro Ball. So I do understand the switch there on the Psychic. Potentially a Gyro Ball there. Could have taken Kleavor out, but I don't know if you had the Gyro Ball. But then you decide to sack it, so more than likely Bronzong doesn't have Gyro Ball. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. So knockoff. I was gonna say potentially here. I don't know the calcs for certain. But if this is Banded Thwacky, potentially a grass move would have taken this thing out too, as well as it does threaten Quaquavel if it wants to do this. But also, I think after like Quaquavel coming in here to rapid spin is very understandable because you definitely don't want Toxic and Stealth Rocks on all your guys. But also, I mean, once Quaquavel is dead, for Las Vegas Corviknights, definitely instead of Typhlosion Hisui, where you have to predict like a 50-50 of what they're going to go for, of whether you want to go for Flamethrower or Extra Sensory on the switch into Toxapex, a way safer option would be to go Low Kicks, to just get off a U-turn, fire off a U-turn. I'm pretty sure a U-turn just like absolutely murks Thwacky, especially if you're Terra Bug. And then you can bring out Iron Valiant. It is scary right now because like you don't know that Hawlucha is unburdened with Grassy Seed, so maybe you just like are like instantly dead here. Potentially you could have found ways to like sell the Grassy Surge, but like then again you don't know. But this is just like a very common set for Hawlucha to run, is like unburdened with Seed, so it's definitely something you need to watch out for. And then yeah, this is just game after Hawlucha comes in with Acro, so potentially for your team specifically, keeping Bronzong alive would have been more important for taking out Hawlucha. I'm even pretty certain with +1 defense, this first impression does not kill Hawlucha, because it's like I'm pretty sure fighting resist bug, so it's 4-time resist. Even with tinted lens, it'd be 2-time resist, plus you have a 1.5 defense boost. I'm like almost certain that that wouldn't kill anyway, and this acrobatics would have killed, but still cool protect idea for the Hawlucha. Specifically, I think something that Las Vegas needs to work on, I guess, is, I mean, not even work on, it's just like having some background knowledge on what Hawlucha can do. Just like acrobatics just like can do a lot of damage to your team. Even Vigoroth, I mean, this thing most likely has close combat it can take out. Even Bronzong is going to take neutral close combats. So like this thing could have been Swords Dance and it still would have done tons of damage. So maybe that was just the matchup. Yeah, honestly, I mean, nothing switches into the combination of Hawlucha because Hawlucha is like a freaking beast. But this is like basically something that you do have to worry about. So potentially having a backup of like Iron Valiant being Focus Sash or something like that, because your Crocodile has Rapid Spin and with heavy duty boots, it seemed like you were pretty persistent and effective at getting rid of, make sure that there were no hazards on your side of the field. So potentially Stealth Rocks could have been nice on Iron Valiant, especially since Iron Valiant didn't really come out to the end. I definitely think at some point Iron Valiant could have came in on potentially Stoneaxe Kleavor. Once you know that it's Scarf, at least you can start threatening with Moonblast, as well as you probably have Thunderbolt for Toxapex on Iron Valiant. So I definitely think Iron Valiant should have came out more because this is like one of your biggest damage dealers on your team as well. But I think overall, good plays. Bronzong need to be preserved to prevent the Hawlucha sweep. Good prep by Kingston with Protect and Baneful Bunker options for the first impression. Good game plan to kill Bronzong and then Hawlucha sweeps. Good aggressive plays by Kingston to prevent spin are the major notes that I wrote down. And yeah, that's pretty much GG's for this match, as well as good game to Kingston Kleavors, and welcome to the PBO for your first match. So let's move on to the next game. All right, next up we have the Pittsburgh Scizors against the Toronto Staraptors. Pittsburgh Scizors have the team roster in the top right, while the Toronto Staraptors have the team roster in the bottom right. Pittsburgh Scizors decided to bring Slitherwing, Salazzle, Sylveon, Iron Treads, Frostlass, and Serena, while the Toronto Staraptors decided to bring Dragapult, Clodsire, Oricorio, Lucario, Spidops, and Gardevoir. So let's go straight into this battle. Spidops has the lead and Slitherwing also has the lead. Dragapult coming in on Slitherwing's U-turn, taking a decent 51% chunk is crazy. Frostlass coming out, and we do see a Sucker Punch from Dragapult off the rip, immediately killing Frostlass. Frostlass able to get that disable off, but we do see Slitherwing come back out threatening another U-turn or first impression. Oricorio is the switch in, takes a decent 35%. It looks like based off that switch, no, Oricorio could have been faster. Slitherwing is not confirmed to be Choice Scarf or Choice Specs yet. We do still see Sylveon come in on the Revelation Dance for the Oricorio. We see a Ruse coming out from the Oricorio, as we see a Psyshock coming out from Sylveon, doing only 29%, which is not bad at all. Clodsire coming in to take the Hyper Voice, actually. Then we see a Psyshock only doing 31% to Clodsire is totally fine, as well as they get up the Stealth Rocks, so hazards are on Pittsburgh's side of the field, but we do see Iron Treads with heavy duty boots come in. Does get off an Earthquake before it does want a Rapid Spin, so potentially it is not Rapid Spin, maybe Serena is the Rapid Spinner. But we see Spidops coming in on the Earthquake, followed up by it's taking a Rock Slide, and then we see Low Kick on the Spidops doing decent damage of 45. Oof, Iron Treads missing another Rock Slide, and Sticky Web is up for the Toronto Staraptors. Oricorio coming out to threaten the Iron Treads out with the Revelation Dance. We now see the Revelation Dance doing about 20% to Sylveon. And now we see a switch into Gardevoir to trace the Pixelate, as well as a Psyshock coming out for Sylveon, doing okay damage. And we see Wish on Gardevoir, followed up by a double into Lucario and an Iron Treads double for their Wish support. So now we see Lucario in on Iron Treads, a Rapid Spin, so it actually was Rapid Spin. on Iron Treads. That's insane. Potentially scared of Dragapult coming in on the spin. But we do see a close combat doing insane damage and actually taking out the Iron Treads. Serena coming in. Dragapult coming on a Power Whip. Very good switch in. As well as it does get off a U-turn doing a clean 55% to go back into Oricorio. It does look like Serena potentially could be Scarfed or Banded. Another Roost by Oricorio here, staying extremely healthy. Here we see Oricorio going for some Quiver Dances as Sylveon's trying to wish up to its allies. A second Quiver Dance up by Oricorio as Psyshock comes out and only doing 27%. Oof, looking a bit dicey, not gonna lie to you. Revelation Dance doing a clean 43% as another Psyshock comes out, doing 32. Another Roost coming up, so Oricorio is staying extremely healthy as Sylveon is just sitting here doing passive damage with Psyshock, and we see another Quiver Dance come out. Another Psyshock doing 27%. I assume we should see a Roost here. We do. Now, keep spamming Psyshock. Honestly, by the time the Psyshock matters, it might not matter. But Psyshock still doing the same amount. We are going to see Revolution Dance 2-hit KO the Sylveon, followed up by Slitherwing coming out to threaten it with a first impression. You're going to see a switch into Clodsire, take 40%. God damn. Serena coming back out on the Clodsire as Clodsire does decide up Stealth Rocks again, which are here to stay. Clodsire taking 34% from Power Whip and then recovering up all the damage. Yes, sir. The Clodsire taking in... What? Serena wasn't Scarf. Had Rapid Spin on the entire time to actually get... And it had U-turn? Okay, maybe it just didn't have something to hit Dragapult earlier on. Clodsire going for a EQ to get off a little bit of damage. Flare Blitz from Slitherwing doing 51%. Hot damn. Clodsire is effectively able to recover that off, and then we see another double into Serena. It looks like Clodsire is able to wall these two potential members. Stealth Rocks go back up for the Toronto Staraptors. We do see a Rapid Spin here. Another recover by Clodsire. I just don't know how Clodsire might be able to just like EQ this away. We do see that Toronto Staraptors is very persistent to get up the Stealth Rock because more than likely Slitherwing is Choice Band. We do see a switch into Dragapult, potentially predicting a Rapid Spin there. But now we see Oricorio can come out, goes for a Roost. Serena going for a high jump kick for 53%. Hot damn. That did a lot of damage. This did ultimately Roost there. We do see another Roost by Oricorio, definitely calling the bluff there, that they're going to eventually switch out because they would kill with a Revelation Dance there. So Lazzle coming in again on the Dragon Pulse, a very ballsy play for Toronto Staraptors to go for another Quiver Dance into a Revelation Dance. We do see that Dragon Pulse after the +1 does not kill the Oricorio. That definitely looked like potentially a roll. Revelation Dance is going to take out Salazzle. Now we see Slitherwing come out. Oricorio is going to go for the Revelation Dance as Slitherwing will most likely U-turn there. Did not end up going for the first impression. A very good prediction by Oricorio, because potentially if it is like Scarf / Banded into first impression, you could like definitely work around that by going Lucario and potentially sweeping up. And we do see that Oricorio is going to pick off the last 2 kills with Revelation Dance. So let's get into the review of this battle. Feel free to skip if you don't want to watch the review. Turn 1. Immediately from a game plan perspective, and I think I forgot to mention this last game, one side didn't have a spinner, so Rocks is very important, as well as getting hazards up. Specifically for Pittsburgh Scizors, now that you know that your opponent does not have a way of getting rid of hazards, hazards are extremely good for you. As well as they don't have any hazard removal, but you have Rapid Spin. So effectively for you, I think going for hazards like immediately of just getting up Rocks, if you have them, maybe Iron Treads didn't have them. Or maybe Frostlass, even a Frostlass lead just for going for spikes could be extremely useful. Because like that once you set up hazards, they're there to stay. U-turn, all this is totally fine. I think also if Spidops was worried about taking damage there, potentially to a Flare Blitz, I think Clodsire is like a better 50-50 play for Toronto, because ultimately if they, you know, they do end up going for U-turn or first impression, Dragapult's going to be taking a lot of damage, and it does. So potentially going for Flare Blitz there could have been, or sorry, going into Clodsire there could have been a better 50-50, or even potentially Oricorio, because you do resist the bug type move, or if it is a fire type move, you're also chilling. Also, I will say turn 2, getting this Sucker Punch off is actually insane, because I will say this worked out insane for Toronto Staraptors, right? Just straight up getting a free kill. But I will say there's a lot of problems with this play, because Frostlass could have had spikes. It could have just been like a spike stacker with Focus Sash, as well as like it could have just attacked you with Focus Sash. And getting rid of Dragapult is, you know, this is definitely one of your more potent mons on your team. It's definitely something that you want to keep around. So letting this thing die is definitely bad, especially since it's so fast. So this definitely worked out for Toronto, but you do have to be extremely, extremely careful that this thing was not Sash, and it couldn't just like Ice Beam you straight up. But also for Pittsburgh Scizor, if you are Sash, which I assume, I mean, if you were Sash, this was free spikes here. As well as like if you had spikes, you also could have spiked here as well. And then you wouldn't have gotten hit with Sucker Punch, but ultimately, like, if you could have, like, I don't know if you died to Draco Meteor, more than likely, another safer option would just be to double into Sylveon to scout for the Dragon type move, because more than likely it's what it's going to go for. Or you literally could go Iron Treads too, because you do resist the Dragon type moves as well. So between whether it's like a Dragon type move or it's Shadow Ball, you could definitely go Sylveon. Definitely a better option than potentially just sacking Frostlass to, I assume, what was going to be an Ice Beam or a Shadow Ball. But yeah, pretty crazy. I wonder if this was actually Scarf, and then potentially, like, I don't even know though. This interaction is just so crazy to me. That this happened. Just Sucker Punch killed it, and it wasn't Focus Sash is actually insane to me. Turn 3. I do believe I wrote that turn 3 U-turn would have been better for Slitherwing here. Specifically, if you are going for first impression, more than likely Dragapult, I mean Dragapult definitely does not live that. But U-turn works well for in case Clodsire switch in or Oricorio. We do say that first impression does a good damage. And then also because, okay, so it was banded for sure. Banded or Scarf. Most likely banded. Because after the first impression, it decided not to U-turn the following turn. But it maybe, I mean, Oricorio does outspeed, but I definitely think it's banded. Especially based on that damage, like this was a 4x resist and did like 35%, so it's definitely banded. Turn 6 for the Pittsburgh Scizors, specifically this turn for Oricorio. You never Hyper Voice here on the Oricorio because it just does least damage. Maybe you're predicting that Gardevoir comes out, but again, like if you're Calm Mind, you win the Calm Mind war against Gardevoir because you're a little bit more bulky, as well as like you'll be able to Calm Mind here first if you wanted to, as well as you have Wish Protect where Gardevoir does not have access to that. So Side Shocking here is just will do more damage to Oricorio, and it hits Clodsire. Also, I was gonna say for Toronto, having Oricorio out and then switching into Clodsire is a very risky switch for you because it did previously just show Psyshock, but also like I guess it is very defensive Clodsire because it only took like 31%, which is actually insane. So I guess it didn't matter, but a little bit of a risky switch there. Turn 11, I said this low kick tech for Iron Treads was Heat. Turn 17, ultimately this trade. Also, now that I see that this is Rapid Spin, I'm curious as to why the Treads didn't Rapid Spin earlier. Potentially scared of you EQ here, and then I think the Spinops just wants to stay in. Especially like after you see the Rock Slide. I mean, low kick doing 45. I mean, this is still a 3-hit KO. I think spinning for you is pretty good here for you, Pittsburgh. Especially since the next Rock Slide will definitely kill, and the +1 speed I'm pretty sure allows you to outspeed Dragapult. So I think instead of going for Rock Slide there, potentially going for Rapid Spin would have been super free. Because then you get the +1 speed that allows you to outspeed Dragapult the following turn. Turn 17, going for Rapid Spin here. It's also kind of safe because you don't know whether it's Tera Flying. You can't like EQ safely. But you could have predicted it. I don't know. But then that close combat like this, like taking out Iron Treads for Lucario, like is very, very good. Especially since Clodsar can just Stealth Rock up later. It feels like that Rapid Spin was not worth it. Which is very good for Toronto. To get off that close combat. Turn 21. I also thought not showing Quiver Dance until the very end was actually super huge for Toronto. Especially since, like, or if you showed it off way too early, then your opponent kind of has to respect Oricorio as a threat. But late game, like, especially with these mons left, it puts in work. Turn 28. I think overall this whole playstyle, realistically, for Toronto Staraptors, they should have set up +4, or at least like they have Ruse. Try to optimize the amount of Ruse that they have, as well as how many Quiver Dances they can get off on Sylveon, as well as Revelation Dance. If you have Hurricane, it obviously does a lot more to Sylveon versus Revelation Dance, but maybe you don't have it. As well as like here, like you go for the kill, but I think honestly roosting up here because you still have 4 Roost, but maybe you're also scared of like Wish Protect. But then again, like if it ever Wish and is trying to Wish Protect stall you, you just keep Quiver Dancing up and you're going to continuously do more and more damage. I do like that you kept the Oricorio alive because I do think it's extremely useful. First Impression by Slithering basically needed to prevent that Oricorio sweep. We see Clodsar going for Stealth Rock here. I do think Stealth Rock is pretty powerful. But also, I mean, we didn't know that Serena could spin yet. But now that we see that Serena can spin, I liked your eventual play to eventually go Dragapult on the Rapid Spin. But potentially, like, you're definitely scared. Like, I think ultimately, do you lose this? I think you honestly just, like, spam EQ to kill this instead of going for Stealth Rocks, because there are potentially some scary threats of, like, if you set up Stealth Rocks and they get up enough Rapid Spin, then they kind of outspeed most of your team, and they potentially could kill. I mean, they can't kill Dragapult, maybe with a Power Whip, but potentially I think it's better to just spam EQ there to kill the Serena instead of getting up Stealth Rocks. Not like these couple turns, but in the future turns. Do you think the recovery here? I think these turns, like when you are setting up Stealth Rocks and they're just getting up Rapid Spins, because you do have to be careful of potentially like a Power Whip critting you, but it is a bit iffy. I like the play of trying to prevent the spin here. But yeah, Oricorio comes out. So surprised that Oricorio still outspit this at +1. High Jump Kick doing 53. I love this, also this stay in by Oricorio to just roost again, hoping that the High Jump Kick will miss. So Lazzle also going for Dragon Pulse here. Very interesting, because if you had Sludge Wave, it is kind of free to go for, but also I understand maybe Clodsire in the back is preventing you from doing that. But yeah, and then this roll, I don't know how much of a roll this was to kill with the next Dragon Pulse with +1 special defense, as well as for Toronto Staraptors, you definitely should have gone for Hurricane, or whatever move you have that's not Revelation Dance to hit this for at least neutral. But potentially whatever your other move, maybe Revelation Dance was higher. So yeah, and then that's pretty much finished up, right? This prediction here, I mean, even if you went for First Impression, like you kill this and then you know that it's Scarfed, so you probably just go like Gardevoir, kill the Serena with the Psychic. The following turn, you know that this thing is basically locked into Flare Blitz, or U-turn, probably Flare Blitz. So you just go Clodsire and you recover Stall it until it takes enough damage that you can kill with an Earthquake. But yeah, good game. Good game from both these players. Toronto Staraptors popping off with this Oricorio set. Definitely very, very huge and essential to getting this dub. And a lot of cool techs of Sucker Punch, like getting off the kill with Lucario, as well as just the Quiver Dance. sweep doing a lot of damage. So yeah, that was this week's match, and without further ado, let's move on to the next one. Alright, next up we have the Ottawa Donphans against the Sonoran Pikachus. The Ottawa Donphans have the team roster in the top right, while the Sonoran Pikachus have the team roster in the bottom right. So the Ottawa Donphans decide to bring Kingambit, Donphan, Arcanine, Mimikyu, Vaporeon, and Medicham, while the Sonoran Pikachus decide to bring Electrode-H, Enamorous T, Rillaboom, Samurai Hisui, Tauros, Paldea Blaze, and Dunsparce. So let's see how this battle goes. Electrode-H is the lead for the Sonoran Pikachus, while Arcanine is the lead for Ottawa Donphans. Straight up a switch from Electrode into Tauros, Paldea Blaze to get off the Intimidate on Arcanine. Arcanine going for a Will-O-Wisp, but it is immune. We do see Vaporeon as a switch in, but a double right back out into Electrode-H. And then we see another double into Kingambit as Electrode decides to go for substitutes. Then we see another switch from Kingambit back into Arcanine, taking a Leech Seed as it switches in. And we can now see that Electrode also has Volt Switch, and Volt just switched out into Tauros, Paldea Blaze as it just does take a Flare Blitz. And slowly this Arcanine is getting pretty chipped down. Vaporeon is the switch for the Arcanine side as Tauros decides to bulk up. The following turn does decide to switch out into Samurai Hisui while Vaporeon does protect. And then we see a Ceaseless Edge crit from Samurai Hisui as Vaporeon gets off a Yawn. Obviously we're going to see a switch here from Samurai into Electrode-H as Vaporeon goes for a Wish. Now we see a Leech Seed coming out from Electrode-H as a Baton passes into Arcanine, but it does keep that Leech Seed due to Baton Pass. And now we see Electrode going for a substitute as Arcanine goes for an Psychic Fangs to actually break the sub, and then it follows that up with an E-Speed for 34%, but Electrode can still be behind a substitute and is getting honestly a decent amount of HP back from this Leech Seed. Psychic Fangs coming out again from Arcanine. Now Electrode's still at 77%. This set is very deadly. Medicham coming out on the switch. Electrode setting up a sub. Medicham taking another Giga Drain at 50% while it's also throwing out a Ice Punch to break the sub, but it does have Life Orb, and the following Giga Drain from the Electrode will take it out. Next is Kingambit out, will take the Spikes chip, but does have Supreme Overlord. Tauros, Paldea Blaze is the switch in to get the -1 attack. It's out to leave, only giving 14% to Tauros is very weak. A switch from Kingambit into the Donphan as Tauros decides to go for an Earthquake, doing a clean 20%. Donphan does show that it have leftovers, while Tauros does decide to switch out into Enamorous, while Donphan rapid spins away those spikes. Next we see Ice Spinner come out from Donphan, getting off a clean 49%. The Enamorous T does go for a Drain Kiss, it does 59% and gains back all the damage that Ice Spinner did. Following this, we can see Donphan double out into Vaporeon to take the Draining Kiss a little bit better. And then we will see Vaporeon go for a Wish as Enamorous T decides to switch out into Samurai Hisui. On the Protect for the Vaporeon, Samurai goes for a Razor Shell. And on the following turn, it will continue to spam Ceaseless Edge to continue to get up spikes while Vaporeon is setting up a Wish and hopefully the Baton Pass. Samurai does miss the Ceaseless Edge, but Vaporeon is able to Wish Baton Pass into Mimikyu. Mimikyu is now at full HP up with a Disguise. It does decide to go for a Trailblaze as Tauros, Paldea Blaze decides to come in to get off that Intimidate. A switch from Mimikyu actually back out into Donphan as Tauros goes for a Trailblaze, also getting that +1 boost. That boost is really useful, I think, also for Mimikyu if it is faster. Mimikyu going for the Tera Steel turn 1, but Tauros is faster and can go for a bulk up. Mimikyu does go for a Trailblaze to increase its speed of its own, but now that it is Tera Steel, it will be one-hit KO'd by Tauros. But Tauros actually going for the Trailblaze again to break the sub, while Mimikyu does very little damage with Play Rough because of Tauros having a 1.5 defense boost. We now see Arcanine coming in for the Intimidate, but it does take an Earthquake from Tauros, which will take it out. And now we can see Vaporeon coming back out so that it can threaten out Tauros with the Surf, but Tauros does decide to go for a bulk up, and we see a Yawn from Vaporeon, meaning that Tauros will be forced out to switch this following turn, as Vaporeon continues to Wish and Baton Pass into its teammates. It does take a Giga Drain from Electrode. Electrode did come out for the Paldea Tauros. And then we can see the Baton Pass from the Vaporeon into the Kingambit so that it's at full HP. Tauros Paldea Blaze is still the switch in. After an Intimidate, it is not doing much damage at all. Kingambit does decide to switch out into Vaporeon. Tauros again going up for this good bulk up strategy. I think where it's at now, it should be able to take out this Vaporeon. Tauros does go for an Earthquake. I do believe the following turn that Tauros should be able to take this thing out with an Earthquake. Yep. And then Mimikyu and Kingambit are left. And then Mimikyu is Tera Steel. Tauros can actually just take it out simply with Raging Bull. And then following that up, Kingambit will come out and most likely will fall to either 1 or 2 Raging Bull here. It does try to go for a Sucker Punch, but Tauros does make the correct play and going for a bulk up. And then we see that Raging Bull, even at +1, still does not kill the Kingambit. And Cleave, however, is doing very, very little damage. And then Raging Bull decides to take out Kingambit, meaning that Sonoran Pikachu leaves this match with a clean 6-0. So I am going to go into the review of this match. Feel free to skip if you would like. So, Ottawa Donphans against the Sonoran Pikachus. Turn 1. Since there is no spinner for Sonoran Pikachus, I thought that it would be a very smart idea for Ottawa Donphans to hopefully get up Stealth Rocks, because they will be permanent for their opponent's team, hoping that they did have Stealth Rocks. And it can be extremely useful because everything switching around and taking chip will be... I mean, there was a lot of switching in this game, especially for Electrode-H and Paldea Tauros Blaze. Can definitely be weakened a little bit more with Stealth Rock, so I definitely think that would be a good game plan for the Ottawa Donphans early on. Let's see. Turn 1, Tauros Paldea Blaze. I also thought that this following turn, the double back out into Electrode-H is really strong for Sonoran Pikachus. The logic behind this is actually, it's really smart because basically what happened here is, you know, Electrode-H does not have a good matchup into Arcanine. But once this Tauros saw that it has an Intimidate off on the Arcanine, it also like can't Will-O-Wisp the Tauros. It's actually a pretty effective double to go for Electrode-H here, because if they do switch out, then like the previous Pokemon that would threaten any other lead besides Arcanine is now on, which is really powerful, as well as this does scout for Psychic Fangs, which it didn't show here, but I think in the future it will show. So a very good double for the Sonoran Pikachus. Here on turn 5, I believe. Let's see. Flare Blitz. Sorry, is it turn 5? Sorry. Getting my turns mixed up here. For turn 3 with Kingambit, instead of immediately switching out back into Arcanine, since you resist both of Electrode's stabs, being electric and grass, it's honestly pretty free to break the sub with Cleave, even though you do get hit with the Leech Seed. But yeah, you could just like spam Cleave, especially since like it's probably going to Leech Seed that turn, continuously like set up substitutes, but maybe you could switch out then, versus like you just let them get a free sub up, and like now you switched and they're getting a Leech Seed off on something while still having their sub up, which means that they're a lot more powerful for the Ottawa Donphans. So turn 7 here, I thought this Protect for Vaporeon when Tauros Paldea Blaze was extremely bad, just because I think it's a little bit too passive. So you know that Tauros Paldea can't do that much damage to your Vaporeon, assuming that you're defensive, as well as you threaten it out with the Surf. So it'd be a lot better for you to probably just go straight up for Yawn, preferably, instead of just going Protect, because it is definitely passive, as well as you could just go for Surf here and get off a little bit of chip on Samurai Hisui. Again, another switch on turn 13 for Arcanine. Instead of, now that like Electrode is starting to get low health, you can again switch into Kingambit because you resist both stabs, and then try to chip away at this Electrode. Because right now your Arcanine is taking heavy damage with all this Leech Seed, which is very annoying. And then obviously here you even lose your Medicham to this Electrode set, which is really, really powerful with Giga Drain, especially if you don't have Resist to Giga Drain. But that's why I think it's important, instead of going Metacham here, you just go Kingambit, because then you resist both stabs. Turn 23 is actually a slight misplay for Sonoran Pikachus. If there was ever a scenario where Wish Vaporeon, so Vaporeon Wish the following turn, you burn out Samurott Hisui. So there is, like, Vaporeon can, like, knowingly, okay, so it's Protect, Yawn, Wish, Baton Pass. Oof, not having an attacking move on Vaporeon is very rough. Not gonna lie, because that makes this thing extremely passive. Also, like, you can just Yawn, but you can use this pretty effectively, but you have to Yawn and then the following turn always Baton Pass to force your opponent out with the Yawn and then Baton Pass appropriately. But this turn specifically, when Samurott Hisui actually goes for Razor Shell, Vaporeon is always Water Absorb. Maybe you were like trying to catch the switch in on Kingambit, or like maybe Donphan or Arcanine, but ultimately, like, they could have Yawned you here and they know that they live any move, even Ceaseless Edge. So they could just Yawn to force you out, and then the following turn they could Baton Pass or Wish again, which this Razor Shell would have given this health. And even if they did go Donphan or Arcanine, still them taking a Ceaseless Edge, like, wouldn't have killed them, but also you effectively get Spikes Up, which is just as useful. And if this thing just like Yawned, then this Razor Shell would be a major misplay, because Vaporeon just gets back up to full. Like it just yawned you for free, basically. That was just like a slight misplay. I think turn 26 for the Ottawa Donphans, I think every week they've decided to bring Mimikyu with Trailblaze. I think it is a little bit getting a little bit old, in the sense that I think it's becoming predictable, as well as I think you keep trying to go with sweeps for Mimikyu, where you just get up one Trailblaze, but then you never do enough damage to kill anything on the team. So I would much rather see in the future, like, Mimikyu either have like a Swords Dance set with Shadow Sneak, or like a bulk up set, because it's pretty decently fast. It just doesn't outspeed everything. So, like, obviously it would never like outspeed Electrode unless it has a +1, but also, like, your main, there are some like main threats here of like Boros Paldea with, like, you know, an Intimidate that can reduce your stat, which, like, you could bulk up here and it'd be pretty good for you. Obviously you'd have to take the Raging Bulls, but bulk up could be really powerful here, as well as just like Swords Dance, versus like you going for this Trailblaze is like somewhat important, because like now you outspeed this, but like ultimately show that you can do no damage with it with Play Rough. As well as, like, if you have Shadow Claw, you should always be going for Shadow Claw here. Yeah, I just think that there's a lot more different sets that you can run besides Mimikyu. Like, I feel like every time I've seen you bring out this Mimikyu, you always go for Trailblaze, which I think is a bit unfortunate, because I think if you went for like Swords Dance, bulk up, tried to set up a little bit, this thing would be a lot more effective. As well as, like, turn 2, or this turn of like turning into a Steel type just like negatively affects you like throughout the entire game. So, like, I'm not sure exactly why you would Tera here, because like Ghost Fairy is only weak to Steel and Poison, both which I don't think Tauros gets access to. Maybe it has Iron Head, but again, Iron Head is very niche and you would have to like scout for it, versus like you automatically went for, so also you went for Tera Steel, but also like they could easily bulk up on you because they see that you're doing no damage to them, which is what they end up doing. And now that you're Tera Steel, you basically given them an easier way to kill you, which is very, very, very unfortunate. Because now like your Play Rough is doing no damage, and they just will end up killing you after this Trailblaze with a Raging Bull. Yeah, again, you don't have to Tera on the first turn that you come out here. You would only want to Tera on like some big 50-50. So say like, for example, an Amorous is going to hit you with like Draining Kiss, then you might Tera Steel, or potentially like Rillaboom to take like a grass move, or like Dunsparce. No, even on Dunsparce you would never want to Tera, because your Ghost, you're immune to the Body Slam. So like, yeah, this Tera was really bad option. Also turn 29 for the Sonoran Pikachus. Now that you see that Mimikyu basically does no damage to your Tauros, this is just like a giant green flag to continue to bulk up as your opponent like basically allows you. So after you break the disguise, and now that you know that it's Tera Steel, just bulk up like crazy, because then you just beat Vaporeon after a couple bulk ups once you get plus 2 attack. So here you could like bulk up again, and then like you could honestly keep bulking up on Arcanine. Even if it has Psychic Fangs, like your plus 2 defense, you're chilling. You're just trying to get enough attack to KO the Vaporeon. Even the bulk up here, like, yeah, honestly, I think the bulk up here is like a little bit bad, because obviously you see Vaporeon come out and you know it has to go for Yawn, like you know all 4 of its moves. So I think just going for damage here is pretty free, because now this forces you out. And like this Tauros is extremely good for Kingambit and Mimikyu now. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of like all the major misplays. But yeah, Sonoran Pikachu's now getting like, I think their differential is like plus 16, which is extremely high. But yeah, just some like very unfortunate misplays coming from Ottawa Donphans, but that doesn't mean that they can't improve in the future. So definitely a team to look out for that can bounce back for sure. So without further ado, let's go ahead and move on to the next battle. Alright, and now for the next match, we have the Wailing Wailords, pretty fresh team. Taking over, I believe, from the Boston Bulbasaurs. Great Tusk, I think they were here last week though. Am I wrong about that? Oh no, they ended up getting a forfeit win, that's right. But their team roster is in the top right, as the Mojave Cacturnes team roster is in the bottom right. The Wailing Wailords decided to bring Skeledirge, Slowbro, Galar, Muckaloling, Great Tusk, Altaria, Raichu, while the Mojave Cacturnes decided to bring Cresselia, Fortress, Magneton, Dachshund, Zoroark, and Amoonguss. So let's see how this battle goes. We see a lead Fortress into a lead Altaria. Off the rip, Fortress switching into Dachshund, scouting for a Flamethrower from Altaria. Altaria going for a Sunny Day, however, does have good synergy with Great Tusk as well as Skeledirge. We do see a Yawn come out from the Dachshund, as also the Altaria is setting up Tailwind. Very interesting indeed, as Muckalolan comes in while Dachshund goes for a Wish. We then see a switch out as Alolan Muck going for a knockoff. I cannot believe I just hit reset. I feel like an absolute goofball. Muckalolan going for a knockoff, taking off the Eviolite of the Magneton, but it does remain to go back up to full health. Muck going for a Fire Punch the following turn does get a burn, but then Magneton going for a Tera Blast does clean 71% to Muck. From here, Muck is going to protect to try to get a little bit of leftovers back, while Magneton goes for Tera Blast. And then we see a double into Altaria as Magneton does go for the appropriate Volt Switch, predicting that switch. And now we see Dachshund back out on Altaria and does go for a Play Rough, does a clean 58%, while Altaria goes for another Tailwind. We see another Sunny Day come out from Altaria as well. A Yawn come out from Dachshund. Dachshund setting up a Wish as Altaria switches into Slowbro Galar. Then we see the switch out of the Dachshund into the Magneton to try to wish up back its partner, as Slowbro Galar goes for a Flamethrower in the Sun, which is just barely off from picking up the KO on the Magneton, and then that Wish is going to heal it back up. Now we see Magneton go for a Tera Blast into the Shucka Berry Slowbro Galar, as the Slowbro Galar does go for a Calm Mind, but the following turn, the Magneton decides to switch out into Amoonguss, while the Slowbro Galar goes for Slack Off. From here, we see Amoonguss go for a Spore. Actually, Spore outsped. Wow, it's actually a speed tie between Amoonguss and Slowbro Galar. That is pitiful. Amoonguss going for a Spore, actually getting a Sleep Off on Slowbro Galar as Fortress comes in for the Amoonguss slot. Slowbro Galar burning a turn of sleep, 2 turns of sleep actually. Fortress going for Stealth Rock as Slowbro wakes up and goes for a Flamethrower in the Sun, taking down Fortress to Sturdy. It is alive for a little bit longer, so it does get off an Earthquake. Gets off some decent damage as Slowbro over predicts and goes for a Sludge Bomb. That is going to allow Fortress to get off another Earthquake, as Slowbro decides to go for another Calm Mind, and then this following Earthquake takes extremely low health, and then Slowbro goes for another Flamethrower. We now see Cresselia coming out. does go for a Psyshock and picks off the Galarian Slowbro, and now we see Raichu come in. We see a switch from Cresselia out into the Magneton as Raichu goes for the Fake Out just for a little bit of chip. And then we see Raichu go for Trailblaze, just barely not picking up the KO from Magneton. And Magneton is going to be able to knock this out with a Tera Blast. Magneton actually does die to burn though, which means they also get to switch in as well. Great Tusk comes out onto the apparent Amoonguss, but in fact it is Zoro-Kasui because Amoonguss does go for Will-O-Wisp, which burns the Great Tusk as it's going for Ice Spinner onto the Zoro-Kasui. The illusion is over, however, and now Zoro-Kasui decides to spam Bitter Malice, doing 57% is actually huge, guaranteeing that attack drop to reduce the amount of damage. And then we see Great Tusk is eject button, meaning that Great Tusk was forced out, meaning that they were able to switch out into Skeledirge. More than likely the eject button was for Headlong Rush to prevent your stats from being dropped. But Skeledirge does come out on the Zoro-Kasui, and Zoro-Kasui decides to go for another Bitter Malice, doing a decent 31%, as the Skeledirge does decide to go for a Will-O-Wisp on the Zoro-Kasui. The following turn, we see a double into Dachsbun on the Skeledirge as it goes for Hex, trying to get off decent damage, although Hex would not have hit Zoro-Kasui. Very interesting. But we do see a Yawn come out from Dachsbun to make the Zoroark pause. We see the Dachsbun go for Yawn on the Skeledirge as Skeledirge slacks off. This following turn, Dachsbun goes for a Play Rough, while Skeledirge actually goes for the Hex, meaning that it will fall asleep this turn. And now Dachsbun can safely protect. Even this protect was a little bit wasted, right? You could have gone for a Wish here the previous turn because you know that was going to be asleep. But then you see Skeledirge actually wake up and go for another Slack Off. So it seems like both of these Pokemon really don't have great damage for each other, since Hex is only doing so much, and of course Play Rough will only do so much as well. We do finally see a switch from Skeledirge into Muck Alolan, but the Dachsbun is able to catch that on a Play Rough and actually takes it down to 1 HP, meaning the following turn the Dachsbun will be able to outspeed and kill it. But Muck does try to protect to hold on, but I unfortunately do not believe it's going to be enough, because the Play Rough is going to take it out. Following turn, Skeledirge comes back out, and you know what that means. This is going to be quite a stall war. Dachsbun going for a Yawn, Skeledirge going for a Hex. We see Wish from Dachsbun, making sure that's staying healthy. Skeledirge falling asleep again, but now we do see a double back into Zoro-Kasui, and then we see a double into Great Tusk for the Skeledirge slot. Skeledirge, Zoro-Kasui going for the Bitter Malice actually takes out the Great Tusk. It does outspeed, which makes sense. Now we see Skeledirge coming back out, and it's going to be spamming Zoro-Kasui, spamming Bitter Malice into the Skeledirge slot to try to get off some damage. Eventually the Skeledirge is going to run off of Slack Offs, and ultimately all it can do is Will-O-Wisp this Zoro-Kasui, it looks like. So we're just going to see Zoro-Kasui spam Bitter Malice, and then it's going to double into Dachsbun as Skeledirge goes for Slack Off. We're going to see some Wish Protect here, while Skeledirge trying to go for some Hex damage. Of course, Dachsbun is just going to Protect here and basically outstall the Skeledirge, because it seems like it has no way of doing heavy damage except for Hex. So this is definitely a win between the 1v1 between Dachsbun and Skeledirge. Skeledirge still going for Hex, but it doesn't matter because Dachsbun is able to wish off everything. And I believe the Altaria is not heavy duty boots, meaning it will die to the rocks whenever it switches in. Skeledirge ultimately deciding its fate, deciding to go for a Will-O-Wisp just to see what will happen into the Dachsbun. We do see that Altaria is not heavy duty boots, and it will basically go down to a stall war where Skeledirge will remain asleep, and then Zoro-Kasui will come out and spam Bitter Malice to finish off the game. As well as it looked like for some reason that Skeledirge did not have Fire Stab for Zoro-Kasui either. No way of hitting it either. So that is going to be a 4-0 victory for the Mojave Cacturnes versus the Wailing Wailords. So again, we are going to be going into the review. If you're not interested, feel free to skip. Alright, so I have a lot of notes for this. Turn 1, this Fortress Scout onto the Altaria is a very good scout for Mojave Cacturnes because it is very... Sometimes Altarias do run Flamethrower, and it's pretty powerful because, you know, Steel obviously resists Dragon, and it's a pretty good coverage option for Altaria, so I think the Flamethrower is very good. I think this Scout is really important. I will say turn 3 here from Mojave. Instead of going for Wish when you're at full health against the Altaria, it is pretty free to go for a Play Rough just to get off the chip on Muckalolan or either Altaria. But I do think that you can use that Wish appropriately to switch in whatever they have the following turn, which does end up being Magneton. Okay, so this knockoff is kind of bad for Magneton because the Eviolite gets shut off, but it's a good prediction on the Wailing Wailord's part to go for that knockoff. All this is fine. This is a really good prediction that Muckalolan will switch out on the Tera ground, and getting off this Volt Switch is really powerful. Let's see. Another option could have also been Great Tusk for Wailing Wailord instead of switching out of Muckalolan, although you don't take the ground type very well. You will outspeed and kill it the following turn, but you might end up taking like 60 to 70% because of how low SpDef Great Tusk is. Let's skip a little bit forward. In this couple turns when Slowbro Galar is out, the Flamethrower almost taking out Magneton is very, very close, so it could have been a roll there. But also this turn, knowing that for Wailing Wailords, knowing that you have Shucka Berry, and like even if you Calm Mind, based off like literally all the calcs that I ran, even with this Calm Mind you die to the next Tera Blast. So you should have utilized the Shucka a little bit more appropriately, because if we see like the Shucka did 44%, it would have done roughly 88, which is like normal roll, meaning even at like 1.5 you're still doing about like, you know, 60 something percent to this, which is like basically a kill. Like I checked the calcs, and for Mojave Cacturnes, that Tera Blast is just a kill there. Highly recommend, because I checked the calc of like how much damage this was doing, and this was a guaranteed OHKO for Tera Blast here. But for Wailing Wailords, based on my calcs, Mineral even after +1 is 56% for Magneton, and that's like extreme Mineral. But Slowbro Galar, going for Calm Mind there is really bad. You definitely just want to go for the damage on Magneton, whether you have Ice Beam or Psyshock or whatever, to just do the max amount of damage. But again, that was a free kill. Slowbro is now getting up to able to slack off the damage, which is really scary. This Spore is totally fine. I think it's a good play of preventing this. But then, like, if you are going to do this, you need to switch in an appropriate threat to take this on, because Fortress is not able to take on Slowbro Galar, and then eventually it will wake up. Like, even Fortress having Earthquake, I mean, Stealth Arc is not bad, but still the following turn of, like, getting Flamethrowered here is pretty bad, where, like, you would much rather go Zoro Kasui and maybe, like, try to get off a really powerful hit, or, you know, finding maybe even, like, Tera Blast Magneton, because even with this 1.5 SpDef, you'll still be doing 66%, versus, like, here, like, Stealth Arc is good, but then you're taking a Flamethrower, you're going down to Sturdy, and then we see the Earthquake come out. Like, this is totally fine. This misplay on the Sludge Bomb is totally fine, but for Wailing Wailords, now that you see that their highest damaging move is Earthquake, you can literally slack off this damage, and you'll gain health from it. There's literally no reason, really. I mean, Calm Minding here is okay, as long as you slack off the following turn and you continue to slack off to make sure that you're healthy, because obviously you just set up another Calm Mind. You literally have slack off as an option to recover all this Earthquake damage, but now your Slowbro is just extremely weak, and it's just going to get picked off by something that's faster than it, where you could have easily slacked off and made sure that it was healthy. Yeah, even the play, I believe, with Slowbro on the following turn of Slowbro going for a Sludge Bomb on Fortress, pretty much this Flamethrower was always free, because even if they go Dosh Bond, on the flamethrower for the well-baked body. The following turn, you just Sludge Bomb, and it's basically an Oko because Donphan has low special defense. You're also +1 special attack, and it's going to be a super effective Sludge Bomb. 21, 22. For Wailing Wailords, I would have made sure that this Trailblaze was going to kill Magneton at this HP. Also, a little bit confusing set for like why Raichu needs Trailblaze, because you hit 350 speed and you basically speed tie with Zoroark. There's no real reason to run Trailblaze. Even based on their team, like everything's extremely slow. There's no reason to run Trailblaze, I guess, except for if you're running it for coverage. Maybe for Whiscash it makes sense, but if you had a better move here besides Trailblaze, I think it would have been way better if, like, I don't know what other moves Raichu can even run though. Probably Surf. Like if you had Surf here, that would have been pretty powerful, but Trailblaze was probably for Whiscash. But yeah, I would have definitely made sure double checked your calcs to make sure that this Trailblaze was going to kill at that range, because missing out on this kill basically means that your Raichu's dead. As well as like potentially you could have just sacked your Altaria here, like fake out, then sacked the Altaria, then went Raichu again to get off like another fake out into a Trailblaze. Would have been a lot better than you than just Raichu like outright sacking, because this is a mon that you could have utilized. Yeah, turn 26, I'm not exactly sure what Skeletor's set this is, but obviously Hex does not work on Zoroark Hisui. I know it's like Willis, Hex, Slack Off. I honestly do not know what other move you would run that, like, maybe Torch Song, but then like they ended up not going for Torch Song on Zoroark Hisui, which is very strange. And they never end up showing what the fourth move, which is very very strange. Wailing Wailords, if you know that you're walled here, you need to switch into Great Tusk. It's good because if you predict the Yawn, you can also go Great Tusk and you can't get Yawn because you're already burned, and then you can try doing some decent damage with like Headlong Rush or something. And then again, like if you know that this Skeletor loses this 1v1, I highly recommend that you switch to try to kill Donphan in a way that weakens it, where this thing can be useful for the rest of the squad. But right now, as long as Donphan is alive, this thing is completely useless. Even having this as like a Sleep Father, where you can keep it around and then like switch out into something so something can't fall asleep, is also pretty powerful. Also, the switch into Muck Alolan, because the Altaria dies to rocks anyway, it's just so much more freer to sack the Altaria here and then go Muck Alolan to make sure that you live the play rough the following turn. And also you threaten a lot of things with like Gunk Shot or Knockoff with the Muck Alolan. Yeah, again, Skeletor coming out again is basically useless because you already showed that this Skeletor gets walled by Donphan for Wailing Wailords. So instead of doing this, definitely the play is to try your best to go Great Tusk to get some damage off, and then potentially like Hex critting for the kill here. Yeah, overall, that's basically all my critiques of the game. Overall, not bad plays. Another miss killed by Mojave Cacturnes. The previous week they also missed a kill, so I highly recommend that you're running calcs for as much as you can during the battles to make sure that you're not missing any free kills. For Wailing Wailords, you missed a lot of free damage. Also for Wailing, if you know you're walled by Donphan, you have to play around that, knowing from the beginning of the game, so that you make sure that you have Muck alive to take on Donphan as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this game. We are going to move on to the final game. Alright, next up we have the Jacksonville Jigglypuffs with the team roster in the top right. They're also located in the top right. And then the Los Angeles Pelippers in the top left with the team roster in the bottom right. The Los Angeles Pelippers also has a YouTube channel. Make sure to check it out in the description below. They do team builders and they do live commentary games as they play. And they're also looking to be a major playoff contender. So very interesting videos to watch. But without further ado, the Jacksonville Jigglypuffs decide to bring Garchomp, Quillfish Hisui, Azumarill, Jolteon, Articuno, and Scizor, while the Los Angeles Pelippers decide to bring Iron Hands, Grimmsnarls, Walking Wake, Cinderace, Torkoal, and Golduck. The lead from Cinderace for Los Angeles Pelippers, as Jolteon is the lead for Jacksonville Jigglypuffs. Immediately getting off a Volt Switch on the Cinderace, doing heavy damage with a 64%, now going into Garchomp. But Cinderace doing a great predicting that and going for a Will-O-Wisp. Honestly, Volt Switch doing that much, I wonder how much. Thunderbolt probably did 88, so it's not a guaranteed kill. But that Will-O-Wisp is actually going to be really extremely helpful for crippling that Garchomp. But then we see a switch into Torkoal to set up the Sun, and Garchomp going for an Earthquake, still doing 63% to a Torkoal is insane. I do believe this Torkoal is like max HP, max special attack, I believe, so it's not fully defensive. But even through burn, like that definitely is looking like choice fanning Garchomp, doing tons of damage. You see the Grimmsnarl switch out on the Torkoal. Grimmsnarl is going to take this a little bit better, 48%. Following this turn, they are going to get up Reflect as Garchomp continues to spam Earthquake. Probably a Parting Shot here, I believe. Yeah, Parting Shot as the Scizor tries to switch in onto the Grimmsnarl, maybe to go for Brick Break on the like last turn of like maybe they're setting up Light Screen. But Grimmsnarl is able to get off that Parting Shot, and then Cinderace comes out, and in the Sun, this Power Ball is going to hurt, and yes, it does hurt, and it basically kills Scizor outright. Following this, Jolteon comes back out. It is threatening to kill something with a Volt Switch, and it does end up killing the Sack, which ends up being Torkoal. There are now only 2 turns of Sun left for the Los Angeles Pelippers to utilize. We do see a Azumarill come out, as Cinderace does come out as well. Cinderace obviously threatening, especially once you see a Azumarill come in and then Cinderace come in, it's definitely threatening a Gunk Shot here. So with Reflect and the Sun, the Azumarill does not take out the Cinderace with an Aqua Jet, and then the Gunk Shot does end up landing and just one-shots the Azumarill outright. The following turn, Jolteon comes back out. This is a free Volt Switch on anything. Actually going to see the Tera Fairy for the Jolteon to do heavy damage, potentially predicting Iron Hands. Very good prediction on this part, as well as like good sack for the Los Angeles Pelippers, because Golduck I feel like is a little bit definitely good as a sack here. Now we see Grimmsnarl come out, most likely setting up a Light Screen, as Jolteon does go for a Terra Blast and actually kills it through the Light Screen. Finally, we do see Walking Wake come out, going for an Agility off the rip. Does have Light Screen up. This Garchomp is burned, meaning that the following turn, oh wow, Dragon Ball's, hold up, Dragon Ball's just Oko's Garchomp. Holy damn. But the following turn, Jolteon did decide to hard switch out into Garchomp. We saw Walking Wake go for an Agility, and then hits Garchomp with a Dragon Pulse, actually taking it out, which is actually insane. Articuno comes out because it's gonna want to get off a Freeze Dry, but the Freeze Dry does activate Walking Wake's weakness policy, giving it +2 special attack, and this is just game from outright. +2 speed, +2 special attack will just outspeed and kill everything on the Jacksonville Jigglypuffs team, and that is going to be a 3-0 for the Los Angeles Pelippers. So again, we are going to do a quick review of the battle, and I actually have very little notes for this battle, but turn 1, very good prediction for the Los Angeles Pelippers to get off this Will-O-Wisp on Garchomp, but there was heavy damage by Garchomp to get off this Earthquake. I definitely think that Torkoal could have been defensive for this match, as well as, well, we'll talk about it a little bit more. I think turn 6, choosing Scizor as the sack here is quite, like, it's not terrible, but when you have a Garchomp that's burned and you know, 4 times resist Pyro Ball, it's definitely better for you to go Garchomp here as a sack compared to Scizor, where like, if you want Scizor to break through screens, or if you want Scizor to take on Grimmsnarl in the future, it's not great in the Sun compared to like everything else. But like, still, if you want to keep this thing alive, I don't know if you purposely sack Scizor, but I do see Scizor having some uses to either defog or brick break away screens, and it's good for Grimmsnarl to prevent screens, basically, because like anytime Grimmsnarl comes in, you can always just go Scizor. Versus like, you have a burnt Garchomp, you can take the Pyro Ball, and then if it does end up U-turning here on you, you can just get a little bit of Rough Skin chip off. And it's like, Garchomp will, I don't think it will take it very well, but at least outright losing a Pokemon. Like Garchomp is more likely to live and then could potentially get off an Earthquake the following turn, versus like Scizor just like outright dying here. It basically has like no uses, and I think Garchomp would have been a better sack. We do see Jolteon come out. This is fine. Yeah, turn 8, bring out the Azumarill here. You do see Cinderace come out, which is what I said before for Jacksonville Jigglypuffs. First of all, knowing that the sun reflect is up, you have to make sure that your calc is appropriate, whatever you're running, to make sure that Aqua Jet will kill. And then the second thing is, like, if you see Cinderace come out on a Azumarill, that definitely means that it has a Gunk Shot. So an appropriate switch-in could be Quillfish, because especially there's only 2 turns of sun left. First turn, you can Intimidate it, take the Gunk Shot, and then the following turn you can double into Garchomp to take the Power Ball. That's just another good plan, because otherwise you went for this Aqua Jet, it didn't kill this Cinderace unfortunately, and then you died to Gunk Shot. Besides that, the rest of the game was pretty fluid, like nothing wrong. You kind of like Walking Wake weakness policy was really hard to deal with. This is a good sack. I will say also early on, sacking the Torkoal to Jolteon, I think particularly, let's go back a little bit. When Torkoal was sacked initially on the Joltik Volt Switch, I think realistically, since you only have 3 turns of Sun, Sun is extremely useful for Cinderace, Walking Wake. Like it's definitely really powerful for these two guys, where I think like honestly you end up sacking Golduck later. Potentially like sacking Golduck earlier could have been better, because like you sack Torkoal here, you lose your Sun for the entire rest of the game, versus like you could have just sacked Golduck, and then if they won a Azumarill, then you could have done the same play of just bringing in Cinderace, and you could have kept Torkoal alive. Because one of the problems with Sun is like Walking Wake is really powerful in the Sun, Cinderace is really powerful in the Sun, but if you allow your opponent to kill your Sun setter, they can eventually like whittle down the amount of Sun turns that you left, and then these Pokemon are a little bit less potent. But besides that, that's pretty much the game. I mean, this set was really dope to see agility and weakness policy, and of course like there's like when you're Jacksonville Jigglypuffs here, and you see Walking Wake, like I know that they brought weakness policy the previous week, but when you see Walking Wake, you're immediately going like, how do I hit this with super effective damage? Because the typing is really good, and like the typing defensively is really strong, where like you want to get off a super effective hit to try to kill this as fast as possible. So like I do not blame them for going for these super effective moves at all. It's very hard to make a call like this could be weakness policy when it's getting this close in the match, when you have Quillfish, Hisui, Jolteon, and Articuno left. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this match. No like major things to go over, but yeah, that's gonna be it for this week of the PBO week 4. If you did enjoy this video, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe for more PBO content in the future. We'll be doing week 5, and then we have week 5, week 6, week 7. Then of course I will be doing playoffs as well, and we'll talk about who are in the playoffs probably in week 7. Yeah, I think definitely week 7 for sure. I'll talk about playoffs in the end, but yeah, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hope y'all are doing well. Catch you on the next one. Peace.